All right.
Hello, people of Connecticut, and you who love Connecticut common sense that we're all trying to gain. So, thinking of common sense, I am here today with John Tobiasen, and we are going to be talking about conspiracy theories. Um,
Love it.
so, as much as the stuff is very brain numbing for some people. And I'm gonna start by talking about, because we're gonna kind of come down to geoengineering, but it isn't just about that. And I will say, John, that I had a friend for, she's was one of my good friends. I met her in 2000 and we were very close for a very long time. And one of the things that always drove me a little nuts about her was she kept talking about chemtrails. And so she'd talk about the chemtrails, and I would just sort of go, it's like, all right, I come from a quirky community. People get to be a little quirky. We just go, that's all right. You can be quirky over there. Um, I have observed, and I have enough friends at this point who have said that this is going on. I've seen enough articles about it. And I have seen that in Connecticut, they actually have something on the books about, gee, you need permission if you're going to spray things in the air. So that was kind of what turned me in the other direction. I've since apologized to her for this. But when we think about conspiracy theories, I think we kind of need to go back to the beginning. And we've got two pieces I want to talk about. And first is, where does this whole idea of conspiracy theory come from? And the second is, why should anyone out there believe John or me if we start talking about this? Why would somebody not just tune us out? So, John, I think I would like you to tell the audience a little bit about who you are, and how you want to do that. We're just going to kind of leave up in the air. I certainly want to
Okay.
know what you've done, but I want to know who you are.
Sounds good. So, I grew up in Connecticut, love the state. I've been down on the shore in like the Stonington area, southeastern corner for most of my life. The last decade, I've been up in just north of Storrs, a little bit up in Stafford Springs. So I'm really familiar with kind of the state and the skies, whatever. Um, so I'm 54 years old, so I've been around way before the internet. I have lots of photo albums with photos in them that have blue skies with puffy clouds, no lines on any of those photos in my albums, my parents' albums. Um, and so like I said, 54 years old, I'm intensely curious about everything, almost everything of consequence. So like all branches of science, religion, consciousness, psychology, history, politics, like all those things I'm super interested in. And a lot of times if I'm, in a meeting or some sort of a get together, I'm usually the guy, I just self-described as like the guy with two more questions. Always. I always have questions. Um, and when I'm studying a topic, whether it's a scientific topic or a history topic or a political topic, I'm always looking at it through multiple lenses. So I have an MBA through Rensselaer. I also have an environmental ecosystems bachelor's as well. I did 20 something years at Pfizer. I've worked in renewable energy for a bunch of years. And I'm also a really active kayaker over the years, winter mountaineer, outdoor enthusiast. Um, and I love to observe huge sort of we'll call it like energies from close proximity, whether it's like storms or tides or animal migrations or whirlpools. I've been in two of the largest whirlpools on the planet, one in a kayak, one in a lobster boat.
Mhm.
And I'm always watching the clouds and the stars and all that type of stuff. Um, let's see what else. I'm a data-driven decision maker, by trade. And I'm hardwired for risk management. So I'm always looking like what's the biggest hazard, the biggest problem that I have to deal with and kind of protect myself and my family from. And where that comes from, when I was a little kid, I was maybe five, my sister was maybe three, we almost drowned in a swimming pool.
Wow.
So I literally, I remember going underwater, and the last thing I remember was my grandfather, old Norwegian cabinet maker, jumping in, cigarette pack rolled up in his shirt and pulling us out. But we were this close, and nobody else around realized we're going in. He just happened to be walking by and noticed that we just went under and went quiet, and
Wow.
he pulled us out. And so, like from that young age, I'm like, oh, you got to pay attention. You got to see what's going on around you and don't get yourself into a place where you're stuck, right? So that's just how I'm built. And then, sort of my favorite hobby is identifying a task most people think is impossible and then
Mhm.
figuring out how to do it repeatably and safely through an elegant use of like knowledge and equipment and lots of research. And so my whole life, I've been taking down big trees. I've been surfing huge waves in my kayaks. I've been paddling offshore to be with whales. I sent you some pictures, stuff
Yeah.
like that. So that's a little bit about who I am. And I try to be as grounded as I can and maintain relationships with people as much as I can. So that's kind of background, a little bit about what John is, how he thinks.
I want
I
to, you missed I believe you told me you also worked for Tesla.
Yeah, so I did. I actually worked for Tesla for a couple of years. On the energy sector, not the car. I own a Tesla car. They're great. But I was on the renewable energy side, and one of the projects I had, I was sort of the Connecticut product owner for Tesla Solar Roof, which is those really sexy solar shingles. Phenomenal product, but very complex. It's like installing feathers on a bird. Really hard. And so my job was to shrink the timeline from when a customer requested to get it on the roof. And I drove the timeline down from like an average of 1.5 to 2 years. By the time I left Tesla, I think I got it the 5 weeks. I got one up. So, so yeah, I spent a lot of time there, and it's all like looking at the data, figuring out where the roadblocks are, and just, clear line of communication and that type of stuff. But yeah, I'm a big fan of that company. They do great work. Um, so I watch a ton of podcasts. Sorry, listen to a ton of podcasts, watch a ton of podcasts, and like, so who am I? And then why should I listen to John Tobias? Why? Why should I trust him? Bona fides, whatever that is. I'll share a little bit of that stuff, and then I have lots of a good number of very close friends, like 30-year relationships. Some of them are over 40-year relationships, and you don't have people stick around you unless for that long, unless you're doing something right. Okay,
Yeah.
so I got long friends. I'm really close with my parents still. I've got a couple of boys who are in their 20s now, and I play beach volleyball with them and their friends, league ball every year for years now. And we're going down again to play. It's like my kids want to hang out with me, right? So I must be doing something right, and their friends want to hang out with me. So I can't be totally crazy, right? Unless we're all crazy, possible, but
Less
um,
likely. We are Jordan Peterson maintains that the definition of sanity is not inside your head, but in the people around you.
I like that. Jordan, I like Jordan. He's a super sharp dude
Yeah.
in a lot of things. Yeah, that's cool. Another one I've heard is you're the average of your closest six relationships,
Hmm.
and another one is your network is your net worth is another one I've
Yep.
heard. Like all of those are super on point. I'm also married to a woman I fell in love with back in high school. She's known me since then, and we didn't get together until way later. But like okay, that's kind of cool. And then when you get into like what are bona fides, it's I've got a couple college degrees. I have an FAA commercial drone pilot license. For a few years, I managed a federal DEA license for Pfizer, certified science teacher in the state of Connecticut. I was a Boy Scout leader. I've trained Coast Guard and auxiliary for water safety and things like that. I've been a sponsored kayaker and kayak ambassador for like a decade for Jackson Kayak. I was sponsored by them. So that whale picture with the yellow boat in front, I helped design that boat, and that's my son that I took out to the whales. Um, Also, I've been an international kayak instructor. I've taught in Scotland and up in Nova Scotia. I've been invited out to Vancouver. I also built and ran zipline parks, trained all the rescue staff, managed the parks, handled all the audits. I now work for an energy company, and I've worked for other energy companies like Tesla and whatnot. And to do all those things, I needed at least that I'm aware of at least 8 deep background checks.
Ah,
So
yeah.
the federal government or the state governments are like, we need to know all about, and some of them took like a month to get through. So I'm not all just like crazy and
Because yeah, I think we can safely say that you are a stable guy.
well, I try, right? I try, but
Uh,
I will also say, do not trust me,
mm,
right? Don't trust, but verify. Or you could like, maybe he's okay. I'm going to take the info on board, quadruple check everything I say. Like if you're listening to this podcast, quadruple, double check everything, whatever, especially numbers. I'm like a concepts and analogy guy.
mm,
So I'm always like, what's true? What can I use for a predictive model about an outcome of a situation? So I'm always about the take home lessons, right? I think that way. So I don't always get the numbers exactly right, but directionally and trends and things like that, big picture, that's where I tend to do better than most people. My undergrad is ecology, how everything connects.
mm.
So yeah, that's background on me. Don't trust me, listen and double check.
And that's how
Fair?
yes, absolutely. And I think, we have become extremely reliant on our institutions, and our
Yeah.
institutions are crumbling. They're crumbling, and we need to start looking at, what's been happening. And it didn't
Hmm.
start with COVID. I know for a lot of people, COVID was when people like went, whoa, what the heck is going on
Hmm.
here? Um,
Yep.
my personal journey with eh, I, I I could use the term red pilling. It probably started around 2000 because I started looking at our food systems and being completely horrified. I don't know if you're familiar with the Weston Price Foundation. Um, but
I am not familiar with that.
yeah, they are. Weston Price was a dentist who traveled around the world in the 30s, and what he noticed was
Hmm.
that the people that he was treating, he's like, all of a sudden there were tons of cavities. And his father had been a dentist as well,
Oh,
and
interesting.
his patients had not had cavities like this. It's like all of a sudden it's like people's teeth are rotting out of their mouths. He's like, what is going on here? And he surmised
Wow.
that because that's when we started having refined flour and refined
Processed
sugar
sugars.
easily accessible in the food stream.
Yep.
And so he traveled around the world. He found native populations who
Hmm.
were eating. He would find one group that was eating their traditional food in their traditional environment. And then he'd go in the cities and find the ones that were eating the stuff that was easily available in the cities.
Hmm. Yep.
Took pictures of their smiles because he was a dentist. And the contrast of those photographs is stunning and speaks of themselves. The book, by
Yep.
the way, is the book he wrote is called Nutrition and Physical Degeneration. Um,
Love that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So Weston Price Foundation, started by Sally Fallon. I was a chapter leader for them for 7 years, and this was after I started doing my research because it didn't make
Hmm.
sense to me. It's like I read books on fluoride. I read books on all of the chemistry stuff that they spray on our food. At the time I worked, because I've got a master's in nutrition, and the time I did the master's in nutrition,
Hmm.
there were 3,000 or so chemicals that were allowed to be sprayed on our food. And this is the USDA website.
Yep.
And I don't even know what it is now. I haven't looked it up. But to
Mm.
see what was happening. And then it's like, well, then there's cancer. We don't know that any one of these individual things causes cancer. And if we do, theoretically, they've stopped it, but they've never ever tested all of this stuff together.
Absolutely.
The
Same
sheer
with all our pharmaceuticals. Yep.
and the sheer volume, and so I started
Yeah.
asking all of those questions, and that put me in something's really wrong here. And
Hmm.
so and that's, all of this research that I took. And my mother worked in the pharmaceutical industry for 30 years. She worked
Hmm.
for SmithKline. And I know how long it takes to approve a drug. So, COVID wasn't actually a big wake up for me. It was like it came in and it was like, I think I'm cautious about this. And then things really went wonky. So it really
Yep.
wasn't a big surprise for me. So
Yeah.
how did what was your process in starting to? I mean, you're naturally a questioning person, obviously, but
So what was my red pill moment or red pill process?
what was your, yeah,
Right?
process? For most people, it seems to be a
Yeah.
process, but
So here's where I would say. So my undergrad, I was um, environmental, ecosystems, all that type of stuff.
Mhm.
I was very naive. I started to learn a lot about how ecosystems and populations of various species, how they all interacted with each other, different species, different populations, all that, and how they interacted with their environment. And I started to understand that, the balance that, and there's not just one balance, there's many balances you can have on a spectrum depending on what's going on. Um, and then I sort of backed my way into a career at Pfizer. My parents both grew up, well, their young adulthood forward was all in southeastern Connecticut, Ledyard area, and they retired out of Pfizer. So I sort of went in there during college as uh, an intern, we'll say summer help. Back then, they didn't have like formal internships. And so I started, now I'm working in this giant company. And this was at a time when Pfizer was like merger, merger, merger. And it went from like maybe 90,000 people, or I don't think it was 120 when I started there, but then went up over a quarter million people. It got giant, and
wow.
that was
So
also
what year was this?
this would have been like from I graduated college in 93, and then I was there for about 20 years. But I also had, summer helps, a couple of summers before that. But it
So in the
just
early
got
90s, they kind of
massive.
exploded. It like
Yes, early 90s, globalization was happening, the internet was happening, all of that type of stuff was going on. So I came into the marketplace completely, we'll say, wet behind the ears in terms of business and finance and even people, like how people think, why they make their decisions, all because it wasn't part of my education. I come from a family with Norwegian heritage,
hmm
flag on my bottle right there, right? And we're very stoic Norwegians. We don't talk about our feelings and our, so like it wasn't part of how I
You
grew
just fit
up.
right into New
And
England.
right, and my family is also just very nice people. Like they're very thoughtful and compassionate and whatever. So I'm like, oh, people are all just generally pretty nice and they do the right thing. And I grew up in like a Lutheran church or whatever, and very Scandinavian. And then I wound up in giant business globalizing with the internet and all that. And I'm like, stuff's happening. Like people are just getting shredded sometimes. Like whole departments are getting let go, even if they're performing fairly well, because it became corporations is quarterly return to shareholders. Like
Mhm.
if you're a publicly held corporation. So there's that is one of the biggest motivators. But then there's also like, salaries and bonuses that people way up in the top. And but I started seeing a thing after thing happen in big business, not just Pfizer, but around the world, jobs offshoring. And I'm like, wow, that's kind of harsh. What's going on there? And I remember I had a negotiation class that I took when I was in Pfizer, and I don't remember the guy who taught it, some contractor consultant they brought in. And so it's negotiation. You're sitting down in a hard meeting. People have different agendas, whatever. You don't know what's going to happen necessarily. And he's like, and he was giving us a whole bunch of tools. And he said, but remember, at least 1 in 100 people is a hard over psychopath.
Mhm.
At least.
Yep.
And I've seen numbers. You talk to, like you mentioned, Jordan Peterson. I'm like, he will say I think 5 in 100.
Yeah.
But you have a dark tetrad, right? So there's psychopathy, there's narcissism, there's Machiavellianism, and there's sadism.
Mhm.
That's four super terrifying people.
Yes.
And every one of us is on that spectrum of those four traits.
Mhm.
So there's probably at least 5 people in 100 that you just don't want to deal with at all. So that was for me, I never experienced that at all growing up. I was very sheltered, very lucky, very, um, and then to red pill journey, right? So I'm at Pfizer, very sort of liberal media bubble, mainstream media bubble.
Mhm.
And, I was pretty active.
For a minute.
Oh, go ahead.
I have a question. Why do you think was it the culture of Pfizer itself, or was it because it was Connecticut? Why do you think you were in that bubble?
That's a great question. And I'm still not sure about that. But that like NPR is a big thing. Oh, I'm gonna spread my horizons. I'm gonna listen to the British Broadcasting Corporation. Like, oh, that's diverse, right? Or whatever. Like, so I'm not sure. I mean, because not everybody there was a Democrat, let's say, or a liberal. And I don't, two wings of the same bird. We've all seen the memes. Like, I don't
Right.
necessarily trust or identify with any of that stuff anymore.
Mhm.
Um, but I'm not sure. I think also I came out of college and then so my undergrad and then I went through my MBA and academia, the school system. I'm a certified school teacher and higher education are very strongly influenced, from everything I can tell, by a very far left agenda.
Mhm.
And everybody who's at Pfizer when I was there, they're all college grads. They've all grown up in the soup.
Okay.
So perhaps it's because you're dealing with all college grads who have been sort of programmed that way. And there's a whole bunch of stuff we can go down, like trying to understand, what's the agenda of higher education and who funds it and all that. Like there's a whole bunch of different stuff we can go into. But I wound up in a very liberal media bubble, mainstream media bubble, not podcasts. Not, that stuff didn't even exist back then, right? Podcasts weren't a thing.
Yep.
So but I'm in there and I'm listening to NPR. I'm like, oh, Tucker Carlson and Fox News are the devil. Whoa, all this, and it'd play a 3 second clip,
Mhm.
right? And you're used to, like, oh, there are good people on both sides of the debate, Nazis. And I'm like, no, that's not. If you listen to the whole speech, that there's all these different things you can kind of point to, but it was the somebody making an extreme statement and playing a 10 second clip and telling you to believe something was
Mhm.
what I was getting all the time. And I'm like, uh, before we got on this podcast, I had mentioned to you, Selena, before I said that I'm someone who regularly tries stuff that I know I'm not going to like.
Mhm.
Trust but verify, right? Like, and so I heard all this horrible stuff about Tucker Carlson. I'm
Mhm.
like, I'm going to listen to a podcast or a show or something, and I listened to a full thing. And I'm like, oh, I actually agree with like 85% of what he says. He's not the devil. Some things I totally don't, agree with him on, but that's fine. And it's funny now, I'm like, maybe it's more like 90% of stuff that I agree with him on. But and I also know like I listen to lots and lots of different kinds of music. I'm like style agnostic. I listen to lots of rap. I listen to some heavy metal. I listen to classical. I listen to country. It doesn't matter. It's all about the message and the information and that type of stuff. And stuff people like that's horrible music. That's garbage. I'm like, have you listened? Have you right? And so I kind of got to that point, and it's circling back to like what was my red pill. I heard all this stuff in my liberal media bubble, mainstream bubble, and I started following up on it. I'm going to just double check. Is that true? Is it not true? And I kept again and again and again and again finding out what I was heard or what I was told, what I heard or what I was told was a half truth
Mhm.
or maybe a total misrepresentation. I'm like, oh, God damn it. And it's so frustrating. And even things like and we'll go down deeper on all this stuff, but like the chemtrail thing, I took meteorology classes in college. I spent my whole life out in the water, sea kayak, ocean to ocean horizon.
Mhm.
And when I was, I started in the 80s and then the 90s and early 2000s, I never saw a line go from horizon to horizon. I was in ornithology classes. That was probably my favorite class in college. We're in binoculars
Staring at the sky with binoculars.
all the time. I'm looking up at eagles and hawks for like 3 years up at college nonstop.
Mhm.
There's no horizon to horizon lines. In my meteorology class, there were like, here are all the different cloud types. And this was sort of the beginning of like in technology wise, where you had the green screen in the back
Mhm. Yep.
and you could do like a full like newscast. And my professor was a former meteorologist from like the San Diego area. And he literally his whole classroom had the green screen.
Mhm.
And he was very tech savvy. And it's one of the first classes where he had high def video that he was playing in every single class. He was doing stuff. Like, here's what a contrail looks like, and it's like an F-14 taking off of an aircraft carrier deck, flaps down all the way, and the way condensation forms is the wing is asymmetrical. It's flat on the bottom, and there's a curve over the top. Air flies like the leading edge of the wing. It goes over. When it goes over that hump, it creates a low pressure zone, and that's what makes the lift, right? By going over. Whenever you decrease pressure, you decrease temperature, and water vapor in that air condenses into droplets, and that's your condensation trail.
Mm-hmm.
F-14 takes off the deck, flaps are all the way out for the most lift possible, and that vapor trail right behind that plane evaporates in seconds.
Okay.
That
Yep.
was the best video of condensation trails a meteorologist in my college
Mm.
could come up with, right?
Okay. Okay.
Right. And you know, there are, you know, I saw other ones, oh, here's a 747 taking off, and you see a little bit of thing, and then once in a while, as they change altitude or they bank hard in the sky, you'd see like a little streak, little streak, little streak. There was never horizon to horizon, ever. And so I just started my red pill moment with stuff like that. I'm like, wait a minute. And then I look it up, and then the internet calls me a conspiracy theorist. I'm like,
So how did tell us how the internet called you a conspiracy theorist?
literally, like if you go to Wikipedia and you Google today, I mean, you can do like you Google chemtrails, it's like conspiracy theory. That's one of the first things that shows up. And it like
Like a
and
predictive,
conspiracy, sorry, what was that?
predictive text box. Is that what you mean?
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, it's like if
It's
I go, I like right now on Wikipedia, and I'm going to use, yeah, so here, hold on a minute. Okay. Okay. Uh, I can't do it on here because I now have no internet.
well,
Shut down my cell phone.
okay.
So maybe you can do it on your end. Maybe you can look up Wikipedia and you can type in chemtrails or geoengineering, and notice generally they're like spell checked. You can't actually type in those words on any platform without them being like a misspelling with no
Chemtrail
suggestions.
conspiracy theory is, hang on, I wanna, yeah, I can chemtrail conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
You guys at home, just try that. Type in chemtrails, one word, and it's the
Mhm.
first thing that pops up.
And if you want to go further with that, go to any text word processor like Microsoft Word
Hmm.
or PowerPoint or Excel or somewhere in your iOS text messaging or in your Android text messaging, and you try to type the word chemtrails, you try to type it into a browser, and it will show up as a misspelling, and it'll try to suggest. Do you see that on what you're doing right now?
I'm on Google
So,
and I'm looking up chemtrails and I'm getting music lyrics. Um,
oh, that's Lana Del Rey, chemtrails over the
yes, yes, I
nightclub or something, right? Yeah.
chemtrails in Hindi. It's
Yeah. Hey, I have a question for you, Selena. So what you're seeing is so chemtrails have been spoken about by thousands upon thousands of us for like a decade now. They
Mhm.
they became really prevalent.
Mhm.
Um, you have Brave on your
I do.
computer? It's a
I
different
do. And
browser. So
go on.
for those of you who don't know, Google is a very filtered browser. You type in the word chemtrails and you're getting Lana Del Rey. Del Rey chemtrails over the what's the name nightclub or the country
Yeah,
club, right?
over the country club or something like
Chem,
that.
yeah, yeah. I'm like, okay, so it's a word, and but if you go into Brave and you type in chemtrails, you get a whole bunch more stuff. It's a different browser, and it has way broader access to information than Google or Safari or Edge or any of those would give you. Another one is called Yandex, Yandex, which is a phenomenal browser.
Mhm.
And they will all give you much more access to information. Yeah. And yeah, and but when you go to these different browsers or different things and you type in the word chemtrails, it comes up spell checks, right? It gives you a lot of them will, and I noticed that like the last 3 years, it's ubiquitous. You can't type in geoengineering. If you search in X, you search on Facebook, you search on Instagram, you search on TikTok, it'll show up as like a um, a spelling error. Geoengineering, chemtrails,
Uh-huh.
a lot of those things. Yeah.
Yeah, I went on,
So,
I
okay.
typically use a browser called Presearch. Um,
Oh, okay, interesting.
yeah, and this is like Wikipedia was the first thing that popped up, but I am getting a variety of different things on here. Yeah.
On Brave?
Uh,
Oh, no, on
it's yeah,
Presearch.
well, the Presearch is I'm not using Brave as a I'm using Brave as a browser, not as a search engine. Um,
Got you. Yep.
but it's like, but I
Yeah.
am getting a variety of different options here that I'm like I said, I've been using Presearch for a while, and so it's
Nice.
different. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, but Google didn't give me anything. Google just was like,
Yeah.
here's
Uh,
a song about it.
Right. Safari is the same type of thing. Like they're
My
highly
first search
controlled.
was on, I used Safari for, I checked
Mhm.
Safari first because I don't have, because I don't trust it. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And like when you check the social media platforms, you search those things. A lot of times they're hidden for you. You can't search them. You try to look up clear sky movement, it gets hidden from you. Like there's a whole bunch of different stuff.
well, I know that
Um,
I mean, Facebook, my experience with Facebook, because I'm not on Facebook anymore, is that,
yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it was painful. But my first experience with Facebook really choking me was when COVID first happened and
Mhm.
there was all the talk about masks. And I have a real issue with the masking. I've never been one of those people that can like hide under the blankets because I can't breathe really fast. I am
Yep.
hypersensitive to carbon dioxide. And
Yep.
that's a
Fair.
biological thing. You know, how sensitive you are, that's part of your genetics. There's not a
That
damn
keeps you alive.
well, yeah, but
That's
some people can hide under those blankets and they don't get reactive to it. I'm like,
yeah.
I would die.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd die. Um,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
so I'm like, I had a real issue with the whole masking thing. So I'm like, so
Yeah.
my logic is, does this actually work to do what they say it's supposed to do? So I started
Hmm.
because I have a master's in nutrition and I've actually read
Hmm.
a lot of studies and I know that
Hmm.
studies can be manipulated because of all of the stuff I read about high fat versus low fat and
Yes.
that's a whole
Yep.
conversation in itself. But I'm reading studies about the masks, and I'm like, these are actual studies, like
Hmm.
actual, you know, these are the things that people are
Yeah.
supposed to expect. So I posted them on Facebook, and Facebook fact checked me and wouldn't let
Yes.
it show. And it was like,
Media Matters was nasty.
yeah, yeah. So I mean,
And that was a government funded thing too.
uh-huh. Oh,
If you dig into if you follow the money on Media Matters, yeah, it's not good. It's not good. Yeah, yeah, getting, red pill is like that type of thing. I just kept asking questions. I would hear stuff and then I would follow up and again and again and again. It'd be proven false or half truths or completely censored, like all, and I just like, uh-oh, what else is not true? And like the whole chemtrails thing, I went down that rabbit hole because I wanted to debunk it. Like, that's a bunch of garbage. Oh, you can look up. There's like hundreds of patents, well over 100 patents on
mm.
this.
Because
So I started, this interview where you asked me, why should we trust you, right? Like, what are my bona fides? Like, don't trust me. Check it. Look it up. It's publicly available knowledge. Look it up. There are hundreds of patents. The Ho Chi Minh Trail, we drowned them with weather modification. Operation Popeye, look it up.
wow, Operation Power.
Like, so
Okay.
like it was well over, there was a whole interview. Candace Owens did that interview, I believe. I refer to her a lot. I listen to a lot of different places, but you can look it up, Operation Popeye. That's also something you dig up. You can probably even find it on Google. You can find it on Wikipedia. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's a real thing. We have a president, and I forget which one, forgive me, because I'm a take-home message guy, who's like, he who controls the weather controls the world, and we now control the weather is the approximate quote. And I don't know if that was Hoover, I can't remember, but it was after like Vietnam, right after Vietnam. So you can look that up too. But that's a like we've been doing weather modification for longer than I have been alive, and I'm 54 years old, and it's documented.
Mm.
So yeah, I just kept digging like I'm not a generally like someone who defaults to conspiracy theory. I just look for truth. Like I want to know what's really going on. And and how do you know if something is true? And the way, I mean, there are facts that are true, and then there are like processes or things that are like a model or a cycle that you can use that have predictive power. So, like for example, you know, the the sun rises and sets every day, right? The moon follows it, lagging about an hour every day. That's why the tides get an hour later every day. The tides follow the moon. That's all provable. Like all of these things are like, they're on some level true. We may not know what causes them, but you can show they're true. If I were to drop my phone, gravity is a thing, right? My phone's gonna hit the floor. We can argue about what gravity is, but we can't argue about the result, right? And that's just kind of how I think. So I just kept looking for like what things are sort of universally happening. And like the whole of the natural world, like systems in nature all seem to be seeking some sort of a balance, whether it's a chemical problem or a physics problem or biological populations or you name it. There's like they're trying to get to some level of equilibrium, and it has high predictive power. So you can make decisions based on your understanding of what the probable consequences are. And as a risk manager, I'm like, oh, okay, I know a lot. Like if I swim in very, very cold water, it's something called swim failure. You don't die of hypothermia. Your body extracts all the blood out of your arms and your legs in less than 10 minutes. You will sink like a stone, even if you're Michael Phelps. If the water's 35 degrees, you will sink and you will drown unless you're wearing a life jacket. And your body can probably be revived for an hour or two.
Mm.
But you didn't die of hypothermia. And the other thing, so that you have swim failure before that, you have a gas reflex, right? You're going to inhale the water, boom, and you're going to drown then. And then you're not really revivable very soon after that. But hypothermia won't happen for hours, even at like 35-degree water, at
Yeah.
least an hour for most people. And like, so I'm just looking for truth. I'm like, okay, what other things are like universally present? And I'm like, huh, and if you have people who love each other, right, they're gonna rally and fight together for the best outcomes of everybody. Like they care a lot about each other, and like, okay, so I try to keep my best friends and my family around me, and then where it really started to get wonky for me in terms of conspiracy theories was I started to notice um, governments around the world seem to be implementing lots of programs in concert, like at the same time. And they're not, there's no input from the populace. A lot of times they don't even admit they're doing it, but it's observable. You look up, there's grid patterns like checkerboard across the entire sky.
Mm.
And you can go on X and you can look up hundreds and thousands of images. If you do it too much, they'll shut you down, which is what happened to me. But there's so much content out there of people around the world waking up and seeing this stuff. But whether it's, chemtrails, there's all sorts of stuff. Digital ID is another one that people are really getting up in arms about. Um, Central bank digital currency, like we can go down. I've got a list of like 40 things in here that are crazy. And I want to let you sort of lead this discussion a little more, but
Yeah.
there's so many things to talk about. And the thing that I struggle with, the biggest truth I'm looking for, is if you have all of these programs, whether it's open borders, whether it's this engineered making us fight with each other, whether it's Muslims versus Christians or Democrats versus Republicans or blacks versus whites or Somalis versus the people in Minnesota, whatever it is, right? Who above the governments, because this happens across all of the governments at the same time, who can do that? And why would they do that? And then what happens next? Those are my questions. And I'm not trying to freak people out. I'm just stating facts. You
Yeah.
can look this stuff up all over the place, but you have to bear in mind Google censors a lot of this. Facebook censors a lot. So you got to go to Yandex, you got to go to Brave, you got to go to Presearch maybe, X, you can get a lot of this stuff. But it's really, yeah, those are the questions I'm looking for. I don't have the answers, but I have the questions. Go ahead. I went deep, hard.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, no, and people, and I'm thinking a lot about why people don't do that. And some of it is,
Yes.
and I was thinking about this was my meditation and journaling this morning, was that because I come at this like a spiritual problem because I am about to be
Mm.
I should be graduating and getting a master's of divinity in the spring. And
Yep.
so I really am thinking a lot about this as a spiritual problem. And
Hmm.
to answer one of your questions, the people driving this, I think those are the psychopaths. And
I think that's a good starting point.
yeah, it is. It's just a starting point. It's just,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot.
Yep. Yep.
Obviously, everything is going to be much more complex, but
Yep.
there is, and I don't even want to go into it, but I have some thoughts around what happens to people when they end up getting a lot of money, because
Hmm.
we have biological drives. Because because my mother was probably because she was doing the pharmaceutical stuff, I have a strong interest in biology. I do not have
Hmm.
a degree in it, but I have a bachelor's in psychology. So I'm looking at
Hmm.
how biology interacts with evolution, with our
Hmm.
morality, and with our psychology, how our brains work, and not just how our psychology works, but our actual brain function and what
Hmm.
we're evolved into. And this is like I'm female, I'm interested in humans. You're male, you're going to be more interested.
Yep.
That's fine. That's
Yep.
that's a beautiful synergy there. Uh,
Yep.
so my interest here in some ways is very spiritual. And what stops people from looking at this is I think a couple of different things. And one is that
Hmm.
it's a big ass problem and it's extremely disruptive of our lives. And we're
Yes.
very engaged in what we're doing. If
Hmm.
if you tend to be more of a conservative bent, you're thinking about your kids, you're thinking about your family, you're thinking about how to maintain the business that you've built for, 30 years.
Yep.
All of this stuff is a distraction. And so is politics, which I've been dealing some with.
Agreed.
That's been an interesting conversation. But again,
Yep.
and the people I know on the left tend to be incredibly creative people.
Hmm.
I know it's like this is my social community, or at least it was
Hmm.
before COVID. That people who, just, you know, a lot of them are, if
Hmm.
you have not been raised well, which feminism has done very bad things to our culture, which doesn't mean that I think that women should go back. We can't go backwards. We can't go backwards.
Hmm.
But as the child of a feminist, raised by a single mom in the 70s, which was
Hmm.
unusual back then, I
Yep.
had no skills when I went out in the world. I didn't know how to cook. I didn't know how to clean anything. I didn't
Yep.
know how to balance a checkbook. All of the things that make life relatively, things that should be stuff you don't have to think about, that you can just do on autopilot. I had to learn from scratch as an adult. This,
Wow.
yeah, this makes it really hard to function in the world. And think of this, we have two generations of kids like me, because Gen X mostly had their parents at home. The divorce thing started, my mother was an outlier.
That's true. Yeah. You're Gen X also, right?
I
Or
am.
just the cut.
Not
Yeah. So
not by the current definition, but by the original definition. The
yeah.
one that Time Magazine came up with when they first dubbed us Gen X.
Got it. Yeah. So yeah, I was in like my parents also not divorced, but they were also sort of absentee parents. Like I was a latchkey kid for like 6 years, right?
Yeah.
Like I was a kid, all those Gen X memes and things you see show up on
Oh
like
yeah.
TikTok, like, out on our BMX bikes, no one knew where we were for like 12 hours, drinking from a hose. Like that was us,
Right.
all of
Yeah,
us.
that
Yeah,
was. That
100%.
was.
Learn hard, right?
Yeah.
Learn the hard way always. Yeah, yeah. Sort out your own
We
stuff. Don't
learned
cry, or I'll give you something to cry about.
I mean, we learned good life lessons, but there was also a whole pile of stuff that we didn't know how to do that our culture just
Yeah.
right out the window. And,
Yeah.
so that, certainly, and then there's emotional trauma issues. And anytime you end
Mhm.
up with a kid who's the child of divorce, you've got additional issues on top of that. So the
Yes,
more people you have with these issues, the less functional your society is going to be.
I agree. And that like when I was in Mystic, so I'm divorced, unfortunately. And when I was in my kids were in middle school in Mystic, Connecticut, right? Local. The divorce rate for kids in Mystic Middle School, and my kids were there, was over 50%,
Mhm.
which is horrible.
Yeah,
Horrible, horrible, horrible. Yeah. You started talking about, and you kind of, why don't people want to know about this, or why don't they learn about conspiracy theories or all this red pill type stuff?
it's
And
big. It's
yeah,
a
it
big,
is. So I think, yeah, it's so one, I like in life, I think I learned, um, do not ask questions you don't want to know the answer to. There's that.
yeah, there
Because
is,
it's big, it's scary, it's going to rock your whole world.
yeah.
A lot of people are tied to their ideologies, and a lot of times their ideologies become their identities.
Mhm.
And if you
Absolutely.
put all of this stuff out there and people realize that their understanding of the world is incorrect,
If
sometimes shockingly incorrect, their entire identity crumbles if your identity is built on an ideology. So
Mhm.
I am someone who I talked about a little bit about being sort of a data-driven decision maker. I don't know if I mentioned um, a continuous improvement person. Like I'm always like, here's what's going on today. I've learned some new information or had new experiences. How do I adjust my thinking and my processes to have a better outcome next time? Like I'm always, that's how I think. So
Mhm.
I am completely not tied to dogma
Mhm.
or ideas or ideologies. I'm looking for information. Does it have predictive power, results, and am I making the world a better place?
I like that
That's
idea.
how I think.
I like the idea of does something have predictive power? Because that comes up because I listen to a lot of podcasts too, and
I-
that's
yeah,
come up a lot lately. Is like, how
yeah,
good of a predictor are you?
yeah. You don't necessarily have to know why it works.
Mhm.
It helps if you know that, but if you know that something has predictive power and you can leverage that, then absolutely, right? But the problem is if you just take it for granted, then it's a black box and it can buckle and you won't know how to fix it, right? But if you see the predictive power, then you need to use it, right? If it's better than what you're using today, right? And so I think a lot of people when they see all this type of stuff, they're like, oh, it doesn't, I don't want to know that people are intentionally bringing tens of millions of people into our country to destabilize it. I don't want to know that they're spraying us with chemicals of undisclosed composition for undisclosed reasons,
Yeah.
for like all of that.
You don't know what they're injecting.
Pe right? Yeah. What are they injecting us with? SV40, simian virus 40, right? Or like it's linked to cancer. And then coincidentally, Pfizer spent a couple $1 billion on turbo cancers right after we're gonna get a strike right here. We're gonna get kicked out. But yeah, I don't know that what are you injecting? And you're gonna make it required? I thought it was my body, my choice. That only applies to abortions, but doesn't apply to vaccines. Are you kidding me? That the level of hypocrisy, that stuff makes me twitch. And
Mhm.
like I try to like if you have a standard, it should apply across the board. Or if you have, like
Ideally.
go ahead.
Ideally.
Ideally. Yeah. Yeah, so I struggle with a lot of this stuff, and so I get why people don't want to do it. Like when I sort of woke up, got red pilled, and they talk about I mean, do your viewers, people listening to this, they know like blue pill, red pill, black pill?
Oh,
Like, is that a
yeah, yeah,
thing that?
yeah. I don't, I
Okay,
maybe just, explain that just so we can have it
Ye-
out there. I don't know that
yeah,
everybody, I'm not sure everybody's seen The Matrix, and I'm pretty sure a lot of
yeah. Well, it is funny because the Matrix only had red and blue pill, right?
correct. So
Um,
we've got more now.
so Yeah, so blue pill and people are like, oh, that's Republican Democrat. What's the black pill? No, it's not Republican Democrat in this context anyway. It's so blue pill is like you just, ignorance is bliss, right? Go back to sleep,
Pharmacy and
enjoy the dream. Things are simple. It's all black and white, trust us, bro, we got it, right? That's the blue pill. Keep it simple. Watch your Cowboys Steelers game on TV or whatever and just kind of enjoy life and get your pizza on Friday and I'm not trying to be mean and like speak down to people, but that's kind of what's implied by sort of the blue pill, right? It's simple. Things are, everything you see is everything there is.
Mhm.
The red pill moment this is sort of maybe John's definition a little bit, and you step in here if you want a little Selena, but it's like the red pill is kind of, there's a lot of shady stuff going on, whether it's the Epstein files, whether it's, any number. I mean, there's so many things. Maybe digital ID isn't for the betterment of the people. Maybe it's not just for your convenience. Maybe they're scraping your data for other stuff. Maybe there was some election fraud, maybe not. I don't, but we should look into it. It seems like there's more and more evidence of that. There's like all these things. And so when you're red pilled, essentially you're now waking up and you're just questioning lots of things.
I want
That's
to
in my head. Go ahead.
I want to give the specific context just from the movie because The Matrix,
Yes.
whatever the intent of The Matrix, and I have
Brilliant movie.
it is a brilliant movie. It also has some weird stuff, but I'm not going to go into that. But that particular scene,
Yes.
the whole concept of The Matrix is that we as humans are actually not living in the bodies that we perceive
Hmm.
ourselves to be. That
Yep.
is a
Simulation.
literal illusion. It's a simulation, not an illusion, a simulation in which
Hmm.
we actually are living in a pod in goo, and all of our thought processes are generating energy for something much greater than ourselves. And Neo,
Yes.
who is
Which is being scavenged. All that energy,
savaged,
it's like a vampiric sort of thing. Like all our energy is being
right?
extracted from us, and we're just living in the stream and not actually doing anything. We're batteries.
So the
And Neo.
hero
Yep.
is extracted from his pod, and the hero meets somebody in this simulation who says,
Hmm.
"Do you want to know the truth of what we are?" And Neo's been searching for this because he knows something's wrong. He can feel it in his gut.
Yep.
Knows he's been searching and he's been blocked off, much as we were in
Yep.
this book. He's been
Yes.
cut off. And so he meets this character that says, "What do you want to know the truth?" And it's not pretty, it's not nice, it's going to make you very unhappy to know this, but he
Mhm.
wants the
Yes.
truth so much. And the truth is the red pill. And but if he takes the blue
Hmm.
pill, he can just forget the entire conversation and go back to doing what he was doing.
Hmm.
And so that is the context. It's like it's
Yes.
very mythological. And
Yep.
it isn't Democrat versus Republican. So just be aware that
Oh,
there is a story. There's literal mythology behind this.
yeah. It it is such a hard thing. Like I've talked to, I mean, I'm sure you've gone through similar things. When you leave, when you wake up, here's the thing that's weird that they don't talk about often. And I'm starting to see more of these things pop up. And it's from people who are red pilled, right? The people who now kind of are awake and see everything. It's not like in the Matrix, where in the Matrix, when Neo wakes up, he drops out. He gets kind of spit out of the whole environment, that whole ecosystem of all these people in pods, and now poof, he's in the real world and it's horrible, but he's with other people who are all awake. We're still living with all the blue pilled people.
Yeah.
We have to go to a Thanksgiving dinner and they're talking about what's the football game.
Mhm.
We have to go to a Thanksgiving dinner and they're arguing about which political candidate are we going to get, are we going to vote for a Republican or a Democrat? There are, and it's like for those of us who are now sort of awake and there's this brutal, horrible truth, we're also very isolated in a lot of ways. We're surrounded by 90% of people probably are not fully awake. That's
Mhm.
probably it depends on your communities that you're in, but and it's really hard and it can be really lonely. And like I've lost I love my sister. She is very blue pilled. She got angry when I started to discuss even some of the most like less basic stuff, and she almost never reaches out anymore. And it's horrible. My parents actually, I've had a lot of discussion with them for almost a decade now, and they're like, yeah, some of that stuff, John, maybe you're a little out, but they're like, you know what? Kind of, you seem to be on point with a lot of this stuff. My boys totally get it, but when I'm at work here, yeah, people don't get this stuff. And it's really hard. It's really lonely at times. But these podcasts, they keep me sane. I know I've met dozens and dozens of people. I've had great discussions, and it's like, oh, maybe I'm not crazy, right? I'm not the only one seeing this. Because sometimes when I'm walking down the halls at work or in my town, I look up at the sky and it's a grid. I'm like, nobody sees this. I was in Switzerland and Austria like a week ago for like 2 weeks. I'm skiing with thousands of people and nobody else is looking up at the sky.
Mm.
And we're just being pasted with chemtrails. Like, how is this possible? Just people don't get it.
So
Go ahead.
you sent me a video and you were scanning the sky and there were a bunch of
Yeah.
there was something else that you had also. So I want to
Frequency. Yeah.
the frequency stuff because I don't know what that is. So I was
Yeah.
hoping to explain that, and I'd also like you to explain what what are these freaking chemtrails and what's in them.
Yeah, I'll do the best I can. And you can look up, this is going to be hard for your viewers to find. Once in a while, you can find it on YouTube. It gets deleted all the time. It's a movie called The Dimming, Dimming. The Dane Wigington is the guy who actually did that, and it talks a lot about chemtrails. And you can likely find that on you may be able to find it on YouTube. You can often find it if you dig hard. You can find it on X, The
Mm.
Dimming. There's another one I've heard about. I haven't watched yet, but I've heard a lot of good about called Climate Trails is another one. Um, there's also groups you can look up on X. Reclaim Our Skies is one of them. There's another one, the Clear Sky Movement. There's another one, MO Clear Skies, Missouri Clear Skies. So there's a lot of stuff out there. There's legislation in most of our states now, the majority that's in some version of progress of being passed about these chemtrails. So what are they? And this is a hard thing because there's varying reports. The science in the reporting is squashed all the time in the media. Um, what I hear a lot of is aluminum, barium, strontium, sometimes titanium, a whole bunch of different stuff, depending on where you are. Sometimes there's biologics that I've heard about. And especially the aluminum, barium, strontium in nanoparticulate form is what they're broadcasting. Dane Wigington, they talk about they got a NOAA flying lab. They followed one of these jets. They did air sampling and they captured this stuff. There are a lot of people who've done community in Arizona. They did rainwater and soil sampling. There are a lot of farmers now. I'm seeing posts across not just the U.S. This is all where the people are,
I've seen the farm
where aluminum,
things from farmers.
yeah, yeah, aluminum has gone up 10x in 1 year in their soil. And people are like, oh, aluminum's common in the environment. Fair, it's all over the place, but it's not in free bioavailable form. It's bound up with other chemicals in the rock, in the ore, right? With Mount Rainier, something like 60 or 70, and always double check my numbers. Double check all my numbers because I'm like a concept guy, right? Mount Rainier and Mount Shasta, the snow is now like 10x the ambient aluminum content in the snow that's falling out of the sky. Why is there aluminum in the air? Snow crystals form around a particulate, dust, whatever it is, the ice crystals, they agglomerate onto that and it falls down as a snowflake. Where is all this aluminum in our upper atmosphere coming from? Shouldn't be there. Aluminum isn't a gas, not at our temperatures, it's not.
Mhm.
It does not exist naturally in the upper atmosphere. So how is that the core of what all these snowflakes are forming around? But you can measure, like you can look up and you can look for the toxicity of the snow on these mountains. Water quality, the same thing. Um, so it's people might argue, plausible deniability. Maybe it's coal fly ash. Like they have scrubbed those stacks so much. And so all of that stuff that you scrub the stacks and you clean the smoke coming out of those stacks, it has to go somewhere. That's where we need to focus our efforts. Follow the tractor trailers of ash from the coal plants to where is it being landfilled? What's happening to it? Or is it going to a military facility being loaded onto a jet or into fuel, which I've heard. And then, whether you're burning it through your aeronautics fuel, which is what RFK had said, or whether it's going into some other stratospheric, atmospheric injection technology, which we have patents for all over the place. That's what's coming down on us. Some of that. We just have no, this is the part that shocks me. There's no government curiosity, no follow through on that. Nicole Shanahan went hard on this stuff a while ago. She posted a video of her on the beach in California. I don't know where she lives, Malibu or San, I'm not sure, but she's like pointing to the chemtrails as she comes out of the surf, and she's like really upset by it. RFK has acknowledged chemtrails. Trump has acknowledged chemtrails. So it's not like this is woo-woo conspiracy. This is fact.
Mhm.
And several people of prominent have come out on this, and then they're all shut up. Who has the power to shut all these people up? Who has the power to have our head of the Department of Environmental Protection at the national level just to squash all of this? Probably there's NDAs involved, non-disclosure agreements. I don't know. I have friends in Connecticut Deep, Department of Environmental and Energy Protection. Environment Energy Protection, that's deep, right? But I have friends in there, and I've asked them specifically on this. Mom, they don't say anything.
Mm.
Why? Probably there's a contract. It probably has to do with termination and salaries. I'm not going to push them on it, but they won't come out. I've reached out to the head of Deep a number of times. I've sent videos, I sent stuff, nothing, no response.
Mhm.
Who has the power to make everybody shut up? I'm talking people in fisheries. I'm talking people in environmental law enforcement. Like, this stuff's coming down, and it's affecting um, a lot of the, yeah, yeah. It's affecting crop growth. Almost no living systems can tolerate nano aluminum, like bioavailable nano aluminum. We have a massive insect and bee die-off.
Mhm.
And like Wigington has cited, Dane Wigington has cited bees that have 70x the amount of aluminum concentration in their bodies that would cause dementia and Alzheimer's in humans. That's kind of terrifying. Um, we don't test for aluminum in our blood. When you get a blood test, they're not checking for aluminum. They're not checking for barium. They're not checking for strontium. When they're measuring our water quality or our air quality is a good one, they're not looking for nano aluminum. They put up, they're filtering the air. What's in the air? The particulates. Okay, so think of a particulate, it's a chunk coming through the filter. But if your grid size is this big and
Mhm.
it catches the chunk, that's fine. Nano stuff will flow through. It's like going through like building
Just
blocks,
like
like
a
city
virus,
blocks,
just like a
right?
virus.
Just right through a mass. Just won't even know that you have nano aluminum, barium, strontium in the air. Even if it was 100%, it would just flow through it like water through a sieve.
Mm.
So they're not asking the questions that would give us the answers. Department of Environmental Protection, Deep, none of those people are asking those questions. And I find that suspicious. And when it happens across the planet, it's not just the United States, it's Canada, it's the whole of the EU, it's Russia, it's China, it's Brazil. None of those people, it's New Zealand, it's Australia, none of those governments are asking the questions. None of them are admitting it's happening. England is like, oh, we may start it soon. But meanwhile, you look at Emma Rock on X, and she will show you videos like 3 times a week of chemtrails and geoengineering. And you asked me what was in the chemtrails. The other thing you asked about was frequency, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So sorry, I went on a little bit of a rant.
No, that's
Um,
good. This was all good.
so frequency, I'm like, those people who believe in 5G and frequency are crazy. And I'm red pilled, which means I have to ask the question, right? Because I've been told they're crazy, right? I so I started digging into it more and more. I'm like, and I also went back. I'm like, what do I know about frequency? And I have a pretty decent science education. I've always been highly curious about science. I have almost no education about any kind of frequencies in my science curricula. Elementary school, middle school, high school, undergrad. I worked at Pfizer for 20 years, a giant science company. I've almost no understanding about frequency. I do know Nikola Tesla was doing a lot of work with frequency. He was actually projecting electricity through open air from point A to point B reliably. He was doing all sorts of stuff with sound frequency. And when he died, all of his stuff was taken in by the FBI and not released.
Yeah.
It was sequestered. I do know that they have in the past few years proven you can levitate things like a small rock with just frequency.
Mm.
I do know that if you have an opera singer with a really good voice, she can shout on the other end of the room with her voice.
Mhm.
I do, those are sound frequencies, some of them. There's also electromagnetic frequencies. So that's like your whole visible light spectrum. It's like the infrared, it's all the radiations, it's all of that type of stuff. Those are all frequencies. I do know that there are lasers that you can aim and you can hit things 30 miles away from a jet. We have patents on that, and you can light up a target from 30 miles away. I do know that some of the lasers, depending on what color you're hitting, laser is a certain, it's a focused beam of light. And when you're looking at a color, like say you're looking at something that's blue, you're shining a white light at it and blue comes back at you. It's reflecting the blue light. So I do know that if you use certain colored lasers, certain color things might be immune from going up in smoke and others might not.
Mm.
So there's a lot of stuff going on there that I've never been taught about.
Mm.
Um, I do know I've been to concerts. I listen to all kinds of music. There's a rock artist, hard rock woman, Hailstorm. You can look her up. And there's a tent down in the Bridgeport area, big venue down there. You've probably driven by it a bunch where you live, right? Just south of 95, that big white tent there.
Yep.
Um, the sound was so loud at that concert, I could feel my bones in my body vibrate, all of them.
Mhm.
Okay. So I do know you can use frequency to destroy amazingly like granite,
Mm.
basalt, which is harder than granite. You can break it apart. You can break apart diamonds with frequency if you have the right frequency. So I'm like, huh. So what is this frequency that like, what's this have to do with geoengineering? So you can look up HAARP. I think it's HAARP, but it's high altitude aurora something or other. But it's like they've been energizing the ionosphere to, potentially direct or modify weather for a decade, couple decades now. You can look that up. There's also things called NEXRAD. There's also this massive 5G network that they've been building out over the whole of the US and the rest of the world for a decade now. I don't have any more bars on my phone. A lot of those
Yeah, I know.
towers,
I don't either.
right? A lot of those towers, according to some reports, I know Dane, again, Wigington has highlighted this, but to some reports, it's like 10x or 100x the power they need to send the radio frequencies to from the tower to the cell phone. I remember my sister when she was at Plymouth State University up in New Hampshire. They had a campus radio station, and their tagline. So she would sometimes do it. Her roommates and stuff were kind of like they had a little show on there or whatever, and they would talk about with all the power of a toaster, we are coming to you from Plymouth State University because it was just a little tiny electric. It didn't require much energy.
Mhm.
And when you look at the amount of energy we're investing in all this type of stuff, it can these frequencies can do a lot of things. And so I say all of that rambling. You can look up macro skies. It's a cloud form. When I was in college, looking at the skies with my binoculars for years and years after that, almost never would I see a macro sky. So it's a sort of ripply pattern. Um, almost never. And now I see macro skies or some version of a wave frequency pattern in the clouds almost daily now, but for sure 4 times a week in Connecticut. 2 years ago, I might see it twice a year.
Mm. Okay, I'm going to be
Three
watching.
times a year, I would see the whole sky.
All right.
So that's a lot of information I just gave to you. But those macro skies are everywhere. And one of the things that is key, so you can get, if you drop a pebble in a pond, it'll send out concentric rings, right? So you get a wave pattern that goes out.
Mhm.
And then you can drop a pebble over here and you can get an overlapping pattern. right? Which is similar to what you think of like maybe that's a macro sky. That's kind of, but what gets weird is in the atmosphere, wind that would ripple the waves doesn't blow from two directions at the same time. So whenever you see an interference pattern, something is weird.
Okay.
That's not something you would ever see when I was in college. And that's a dead giveaway. Something's going on. And I just took pictures in Switzerland and Austria, and there's like a pattern over here of waves and a pattern over here, and they're all at the same altitude. They're all, and it's just like it's different towers transmitting different frequencies that's agitating the air in different ways. And I didn't want to believe that stuff, but the more I dug into it to try to debunk it, I'm like, oh, God damn it, this one's also true. It's like it just keeps showing up. And yeah, I find it so interesting. And go ahead. I just went on like a 10-minute rant. So
I
yeah.
We're gonna wrap it up here because I think that's probably enough for our viewers to absorb today. And this has been a long,
Yeah.
and I want to make sure that I can get it loaded properly. So,
No problem.
yeah.
Okay.
So this has been,
Thank you very much.
and I hope you'll come back on again because this has been a
Yeah,
really interesting talk.
absolutely.
All right.
Super, yeah, super appreciate it. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome, and thank you for coming on. So, good night, everybody, and God bless America and God bless Connecticut, and just pray
Absolutely.
for us all to whoever you speak to, because we need all the help we can get. Good night, everybody. And now I'm
Good
gonna
night.
turn this damn thing off. Hang on. That's always complicated to get it turned off.
Take your time. I went